What's going on, Bottom Line viewers? It's Mitch back here with another NFL 2020 record prediction. In this video, I'm going to break down the Atlanta Falcons schedule and give you my thoughts on what their record will be in 2020. Go game by game with my game by game predictions. Give you the teams that I think they can beat this year, the teams that I think they probably don't match up so well with in 2020, and then determine if they are a team that can get back to the playoffs this year or they're still in the middle of the pack in the NFC. Before I do dive into Atlanta's schedule in 2020, make sure that you do Gronk spike the like button, subscribe to the Bottom Line View for more NFL videos just like this, and Falcons fans, comment your opinion below. Let me know in the comment section what their record will be in 2020. Let's take a look at this schedule. One that I think pretty challenging overall. I think the NFC South as a whole has a pretty challenging schedule. Starting off in week number 1, they play the Seattle Seahawks. Of course, Dan Quinn's old rival. And when you're looking at this game, I think that's not a bad team for this season to start off with. Now, Seattle is a good team with a great quarterback, but this is a team you're familiar with. As I said, you're very familiar with their defense and their defensive scheme. You're familiar with their coaching staff and their tendencies, and they are with you as well. So it makes a lot of sense for the NFL to put this week 1 because it's almost like a rivalry without it being a full rivalry, and it's a game that I think will produce good football because both teams will be well prepared. I look at it and I just say I think Seattle is the better team. I think Seattle is just a tad bit better. I want to say that they're just a tad more complete. And I think just some of that has to do with Russell Wilson just being an amazing clutch quarterback. And would I be shocked if Atlanta won this game? Not really. I think they definitely could. But I definitely think this will be a one-score game because those are the type of games the Seahawks always play. So it should be exciting, and Atlanta should have an opportunity to win. But what I look at the end of the day as the difference maker is Atlanta's young secondary in week 1 taking on DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. And that's going to be very challenging. So I'm going to take the Seahawks. Week 2, they play Dallas in Dallas. This is 2 tough potential playoff opponents in week 1. I'm going to go with Dallas here because I think they have more capability to run the football. I think they are better on defense. And I do think that they have probably the superior weapons all around and probably the more explosive team, which in the past, that would be hard to say that any team was more explosive than Atlanta. But I don't think they have the same amount of weaponry that they used to, although I love their 2 receivers. I just don't think, Dallas can offer so much in terms of balance offensively, in terms of their ability to run and pass and Dak. And I think Kellen Moore's offense will only be better, and their defense is pretty solid as well. So I'm going with Dallas, especially at home. Then week 3, they play Chicago. I think this is where they pick up their first victory of the season. I think with Chicago, it's basically the inverse of Dallas. Dallas is super explosive. I don't see the explosive ability with Chicago, especially their quarterback position. Their quarterback position, it will be very conservative. There won't be a lot of passing downfield to attack this Atlanta secondary, and I think that allows an Atlanta front to get very aggressive and play the run and get a little, crazy up front to be able to get after the quarterback, get after whoever it is starting at quarterback at this point. And it might even be Trubisky, which would be even better for Atlanta. Week 4, they play Green Bay on Monday night in Green Bay. This is a game that initially I had them winning, but once I did look at Green Bay's schedule and went game for game on Green Bay's schedule, I kind of figured, Green Bay has a rough start to the season. I don't see them having all these losses in the month of September with Aaron Rodgers. This game will be very close, and this is another one just like Seattle that I could see Atlanta winning, but because it's in Lambeau Field and it's on a Monday night, and I don't really see you guys having anybody that can cover Devontae one-on-one, I'm going to lean to Green Bay. But this should be an exciting, pretty high-scoring game. And I will also say that Green Bay has an underrated pass rush, and I think that is something that may hurt Atlanta in terms of going toe-to-toe with Aaron Rodgers. Week 5, they play Carolina at home. I think they win that game. I would not be shocked if they swept Carolina this year, but Actually, I have Carolina beating them once this season, and that is due to the new coaching change. If this was still Ron Rivera's Carolina team, I'd probably go with the sweep. But because it's a little bit different, it's a Matt Rule coach team with new coordinators and a lot of new players in Carolina. I don't think Carolina is going to be a very good team overall, but when it's divisional opponents, you're playing within the span of 4 weeks. It's difficult to beat a team twice, so I'm going to go with Carolina. Now, week 6, they play Minnesota in Minnesota. I'm going to go with Minnesota because I think they have a really good defense. They're very well coached defensively, and offense, I think they can run the ball, be balanced, and just overall win it that way. I think they played last year early in the season, and Minnesota dominated, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe that was 2 years ago. I can't really remember with my memory. But anyways, I think Minnesota will win that game at home. Week 7, they play Detroit. I think this is going to be a really entertaining game. I'm higher on Detroit than a lot of other people are. I think it could go either way. I'm going to side with Atlanta here because I think overall, it's probably going to be a shootout, and I do expect Atlanta to be able to, at home, win this game in a shootout atmosphere. I don't know if Okuda is going to be able to, go one-on-one with Julio quite yet. Maybe he's that good. Maybe he's not. I don't know. We'll have to find out. Week 9, they play the Broncos. I think the Broncos will win. This is another game I would circle to say, they could potentially win this game. But when I look at Denver, I think, and by week 9, they should be settled at quarterback in terms of Drew Lock should be, in the full swing of things. And I think their defensive line is just so good. Their front seven is really good, and their secondary is good enough. I look at their offense, and it's a lot more explosive than it used to be. And I do think they'll be more capable running the football this year than a lot of people think. I think they're going to be a really good running team. Then they go in the bye week, and then it's week 11, New Orleans at home. I'm going to say that New Orleans, I think Atlanta beats them once, as they typically do. Sometimes New Orleans tends to sweep them at times, but usually it's a split. So either way you want to go here, I think it's probably going to be that Atlanta, I know this is kind of weird to say, but I think Atlanta's going to beat them the first time they play. Don't know why, just kind of a feeling. And then New Orleans will beat them the second time, although it's on the road for both teams. And then week 12, they play Vegas in Atlanta. This game could go either way. I think John Gruden, his rushing attack and his offense and his scheme is very creative, and I give it a lot of credit. But I do think Atlanta on the front, on their front seven, they're one of the teams that it's going to be challenging to get past this Oakland O-line that's very good. But I don't know if they quite have the big-time playmakers on the outside to make a lot of downfield big plays. Atlanta's defense forces you to go the length of the field very often, and I don't know if they have the corners to match up with Ridley and Julio when it's all said and done. I just don't think they do, and I think that's ultimately what holds back Vegas from being a really quality team. I think Vegas has a lot of good pieces this year, and they're a lot better. They're improved, but I just don't see them in their secondary being able to match up in this game. Week 14, they play the Chargers in LA. This will be a challenging game for Atlanta to score. This is another one just like Seattle where both teams play very similar schemes. I do have Atlanta winning just because of the lopsided quarterback matchup in their favor. Week 15, they play Tampa Bay. I think Atlanta wins versus Tampa Bay and Tom Brady the first time they play them, but they lose in Week 17 as Tampa Bay is gearing up for the playoffs. And in Week 16, they play Kansas City, and I think Kansas City will win that game because Patrick Mahomes, not much else to be said there. So I do have Atlanta going 7-9. I could see Atlanta being as good as 8-8, maybe 9-7. And I could see them being as bad as 6-10. Ultimately, as you can tell, I just think they're an average team again this year. I don't know if they're quite good enough on the offensive line, specifically the interior of the offensive line. And I don't know if they really are good enough in the secondary for me to fully endorse them as a team in the NFC that can make the playoffs, especially in a division with Tom Brady, Drew Brees, and the Bucs and the Saints. This is a very difficult division. They play a pretty difficult schedule. They play Seattle, Dallas, the Packers, the Vikings, the Broncos, the Chiefs. They play the Bucs and the Saints twice, which is an absolute just hurts your chances. So ultimately, I think Atlanta's a solid football team that will give a lot of teams issues, and they'll stay in a lot of games. but I just think they're average, and I think that's what their record comes out to be. It's somewhere between 9 and 6 wins. I have them at 7 and 9 in 2020. Gronk, spike the like button. Comment below your opinion on what you think Atlanta will do in 2020. It's Mitch. Peace.